Welcome to the ladies' top 10 games of 2024. Welcome to the 2024 ladies edition of our top 10 games of 2024. Now this year, Katie and Chantel didn't get to join us. They've got lots of kids and it's Christmas time. So there's all kinds of activities happening. So this time we have a prize to give away.
Oh, prizes. Love prizes.
So if we get 1,500 likes by the end of the year, we will be giving away a copy of Courtisans from Pandasaurus.
Spoiler, you might be seeing it at some point in this video.
All right, let's get started with our number 10.
So my number 10 of 2024 is a game that I don't think a lot of people know about. This is Open Season from Sit Down Games, and it reminds me a little bit of Sudoku. Mm-hmm. Where you're trying to place cards in the proper spots, and if you can get the right icons and the right types of adventurers, then you're going to get more points and unlock things. So I really love this puzzle aspect. It also has a really unusual theme. You're playing as the dungeon lords who are fed up with the adventurers that keep coming into their dungeons and disrupting everything. So you have a trophy wall and you're putting their heads up on the wall and you're trying to make the best arrangement. Now, Sarah, did you play this?
I have played
one?
this, yes.
What did you think of it?
It is a little confusing to figure out where things need to go to make sure that you score really high. Once you figure that out, it's great. There is a little bit of a learning curve for this one, but you need to enjoy puzzle and arranging type games to like this one.
Yeah, and I think I probably threw you into the advanced game.
I got thrown into the deep end when I played this one for the first time.
I knew you could handle it, but I just really appreciated the puzzle nature of this one and trying to maximize your placement, and there's a lot of variability with the setup, especially if you use the advanced game.
All right, my number 10 is Alhambra, the Red Palace. Now, Alhambra is in my top 20 of all time. And this version is a standalone, and it kind of builds on most of the game that you would play in the base game of Alhambra, but it adds some new twists. It also adds some components that you don't have in the base game, and instead of just trying to be able to look at what everybody else has built, there are now wooden pieces that go on top of your tiles, so you can easily figure out what everybody else has for those majority scoring, and the market cards change up what that is. So now every time you're not just trying to go for the purple or whichever it was the most valuable in the last original game. Now it's going to change, and it may be purple's valuable the first round, but the last round it's hardly worth anything. So you have to balance out how you go about gaining things.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed that aspect of the game. Alhambra is also one of my top games, classic games. Mm-hmm. And I thought this was a really good re-implementation of it.
It's a great one to introduce to those who may not have seen it the first time around.
And it plays up to 6.
Yeah.
So that's great. Number 9.
My number 9 is Blueprints of Mad King Ludwig. And I love drawing. I love roll and writes. This one I actually get to fill in the shapes of the castle pieces that I'm adding to my castle. I love that there's a little bit of a puzzle aspect to get them to fit together. I think it's a little bit more than the base game of Mad King Ludwig. It also has some bonus points for leaving areas of your map open. The bidding is a little bit different in this one. There's no master who's having pieces out. I like that I don't have to worry about that in this one. I love the vellum sheets that you get to use to copy and do the drawing with. So love this one.
I'm not going to say too much now because, spoiler, this one's going to be on my list a little later.
What's your number 9?
All right, so my number 9 is Fromage. We are making cheese. And this is from R2I Games, Road to Infamy. And it's designed by some friends of ours, Ben Rossett and Matt O'Malley. They've done a lot of games that Kevin and I really appreciate. But this one is interesting. The board is circular, and there are 4 quadrants, and each quadrant scores differently. So as you're playing, you're thinking about making cheese in different areas, and where you place it in each of the different quadrants of the board is going to have a different scoring mechanism. It has worker placement, but some workers will come back to you next turn. Some will take 2 turns, and some will take 3 turns. And you know when you place them, if I'm going to make this aged cheese, which is going to be worth more points, that worker is going to have to sit there for 2 or 3 turns. So there's an interesting dynamic with how you're placing your workers and when they come back and which cheese that you're making. And there's different board layouts, different cards that you can play with that helps with some variability. So I've really enjoyed playing Fromage.
Number 8.
My number 8 game is Wyrmspan from Stonemaier Games. Now, I enjoy Wingspan. I'm not a Wingspan fanatic, though. I think it's an okay game. But I really did enjoy Wyrmspan with the dragon theme, and it has similar aspects to Wingspan, but different. There's a guild board that you're going on. As you advance, you get special benefits. You have to excavate your caves before the dragons can go in, and you get benefits when you do that. I thought this version, Wyrmspan compared to Wingspan, it was a little easier to plan. There's not dice to get resources. You can choose which resources to get. I thought that the powers on the dragons were pretty interesting. Some of them are end game. Some of them are when played. Some of them are when you take your adventurer through the caverns. And it just had a lot of interesting things that they were doing with that. The dragons are super cute too. So I've enjoyed Wyrmspan.
My number 8 is Endeavor Deep Sea. I love that there's another version in the Endeavor family. This one is modern. So instead of being a historic game, this one is placed in modern day times, and you are exploring the depths of the ocean. And so instead of trying to conquer lands, you are exploring coral reefs, and you are sending sonar down to add to the board. So this one, there's no main board that you play with. There are tiles, and you can choose which tiles will come out, and there's different depths. So you'll have to upgrade your ships. It has those tracks just like the base Endeavor. This one's a standalone. And so now we're upgrading our ships, being able to go deeper and farther when we travel. It has all the different, we'll be using workers this time. So we're hiring crew members that have different focus. You might hire a biologist or somebody who will run the ship for you. So it's got some of the same feel and look, and the iconography is going to be very similar. But this time, it's got a modern theme.
I have not had a chance to play this one yet. I'm sad. Now, Sarah, are you teaching this one at Tantrum Con?
I am teaching this one at Tantrum Con.
So a few lucky attendees will be able to play this with Sarah.
Yep. It's got great components, too, that makes the game set up very quickly, and you can jump right in. And the game kind of teaches you the first round what you need to do as you get started.
Number 7.
My number 7 is River of Gold from Office Dog. This has a beautiful board that you will be traveling on your ships down the river, gaining resources to then fulfill orders. And I love the different aspects and choices in this one. The gameplay is great. I got to try a prototype out at PAX a couple years ago, and it has finally come out, and I'm always glad for this one to hit the table.
Yeah, and I'm going to say more about it later.
Okay.
But
what's your number 8?
My number 7.
Or number 7.
Number
sorry.
7 is Minos from Board and Dice. It's designed by, I'm going to say it wrong, aren't I? Stan Kronologic. Sorry, Stan. And it has a lot going on in this game.
It is. This is a big game.
It's a dice drafting game, and as you draft the dice, the color matters for going up certain progress tracks, and then the number, it kind of determines where it will slot on an action board. So if I take a 4 and I want to use it to play cards, I put it in the play card row. But then someone picks a 3 and puts it in that same row. They get to go in front of me, and it's a better action, a more powerful action. But you want the higher numbers to be able to go up the progress tracks. So there's this push and pull of different goals that you have as you're taking the dice. You also, once we get to the action phase where you're resolving the dice, you do them from, I can't remember if it's high to low or low to high. But basically the numbers that you're taking during the drafting phase set the order you have to take the actions later. And that was a lot to think about during that action phase, but I really enjoyed the whole process of that. And then there's an area control aspect, but you're not fighting and killing each other. It's more of, I have more, so I'm going to get a better reward. You have fewer, you're going to get a lesser reward. And I like that sort of interaction where it's not quite as mean and cutthroat, but there's still some interaction on that main board.
Yeah, I liked how you picked your actions on this. There was a lot of thinking and planning on this one.
And the cards. I loved the cards that you play because they have immediate benefits, but then you can tuck them for later benefits that make your actions even more powerful. So combos. I love combos, and there are a lot in this game.
Number 6.
My number 6 favorite game for 2024 is River Valley Glassworks from Allplay. And this is actually a game that Kevin and I played a prototype of probably maybe 5 years ago, might even be longer than that. And it was just cards. It had a different theme. And it has come a long way since then. You are little animals that have shops that sell river glass, and you're placing glass in the river, and the type of glass that you place determines which glass you can take. And basically you're trying to get different colors of the glass to make rows, but then the same colors to make columns, and you only score your 2 highest columns, but the placement of them are different points, so you're trying to get the right shapes and the right colors to be able to make your Glassworks shop the best. It is a simple game, but a thinky game. So I've played it with my parents and casual gamers, and they've had fun. I've played it with more experienced gamers, and they've also had fun with it. I especially like that there is a mini expansion that you can get for the game, and it adds a little bit more complexity. So if you're playing with those more advanced gamers, I would definitely say you want the mini expansion. But otherwise, a great family weight game that's pretty quick and pretty thinky.
My number 6 is Pixies from Pandasaurus. This is a teeny tiny game.
So tiny.
And it's one of those I was like, how has this not been already made? It's very simple. You are going to draft a card and add it to your tableau. And there are numbers 1 through 9. And there's a spot for each one of those numbers. And there is going to be end game scoring for sets of colors that are connected. Or your largest set's going to score, and you're going to play 3 rounds. So each time that number is going to increase how much you get to gain points for. And then you're also able to tuck duplicate cards. So if I gained a 5 already, I can choose which one I want to place underneath and validate it, or I can if I already have one validated, I can put it somewhere else. All of those cards that are validated underneath are worth the face value. So if you can get some 7s, 8s, or 9s validated, it's worth a lot of points. Some of the cards, however, give you negative points and they have some X's on them. And so there's a little bit of thinking involved in the drafting portion of, oh, Melissa's looking at lots of red cards. This one has negative, so I'm going to draft one of the other ones, so she has to take one of the negatives. So that's very simple gameplay and very quick game that has the cutest artwork.
Yeah, what would you call? Is there a name for this type of artwork?
It's a natural sculpture, is what I would call it. So the artist gathered natural items, so acorns and leaves and different things, and sculpted these little creatures and then photographed all of them for the cards in this game. I've had some kids come and pull it out, and they ended up not even playing. They just sat there looking and sorting all their favorite creatures in art. So super fun.
Number 5.
My number 5 is Trio from Happy Camper. This is another very simple game that you are trying to gain sets of 3 matching cards. There are 3 of each card in the deck. So we're going to deal out cards to everybody, and there will be a few, depending on your player count, face down in front of you. So on your turn, all you're allowed to do is to ask somebody, it could be yourself, to show your highest or your lowest card. And you'll have to be able to do that and get all 3 of the matching cards to gain them. And if you can get 3 sets of those cards, you'll win the game. The only other way to win is to get a set of 7. So there's cards 1 through 12 and 3 of each of those. The 7 is going to be the hardest to get because you can only ask those 2 questions, highest or lowest. So it's going to be rare to be able to pick up all 3 7s. But super fun. You just go around and keep asking those questions. And it's a little bit of a memory. I don't always like memory games. But this one has just enough that you can usually figure out and remember what people have in their hands.
Yeah, I was not very good at this one, but it was kind of fun to laugh at other people when they make mistakes and then, take it when they laugh at you for making a mistake because you didn't remember that Sarah had the 8 instead of Kevin having the 8 or something like that. So
yeah, it's a very quick little card game.
So my number 5 is Kronologic, and there's several themes of this one. This one is Paris 1920. It is published by Super Meeple, and it is a deduction game, but not a social deduction game. Basically, you have a map, and I think it's 6 time slots, and you're trying to figure out where people were at each time during the evening. There are several scenarios in the box, and each scenario has about 5 chapters or games with it, so lots of variations on it. One of the scenarios is someone has stolen a necklace. So you know that when it was stolen and where, and you have to figure out who has it at the end of the night, but they can pass the necklace off to people. So it's a really interesting game because on your turn, you pick up a card and say, like, I want to know where the Baroness was at 3:00. And you look at the answer, you put 2 things together, and there'll be some information for yourself that's secret, but then information that you give everybody. So on each person's turn, you're getting some information, but not all of the information. So you're trying to, kind of like Clue or something, pick up on what the other people have said and piece it all together. And it's only about a 30-minute game, so it's not super long. My friends and I, Kevin and us, we have really enjoyed this. I think we've played almost every scenario now that's in the box, and looking forward to maybe trying some of the other boxes in the Kronologic set.
Number 4.
So my number 4 game is Windmill Valley from Board and Dice. And if you've looked at some of the previous years, Board and Dice has ended up on my list a lot with some of their games. I think Barcelona might have been my top game last year. So they tend to put out games that really hit the sweet spot for me. And Windmill Valley has a really interesting action selection mechanic where you have a windmill and it's kind of gears that you rotate, and eventually it'll put 2 actions up that are in the area that you can take. So different things let you move the windmill 1 space, 2 space, 3 spaces. So you're trying to figure out the best way to plan your actions. This game has a lot of different areas where you can get points. You can build windmills out on the board and get tons of benefits and combos. You can upgrade your wheel to better actions. You can plant tulips so that you're getting points for your tulips planted, but they'll also give you benefits. So I do enjoy games where you take an action and it combos or spirals out into other things, domino-like, and Windmill Valley has that aspect to it. It's also just kind of a fun theme and pretty with windmills and tulips and all of that. So I really enjoyed Windmill Valley.
My number 4 is Unconscious Mind. This is just the prototype box that I have from Fantasia Games. This one, you are working to help your patients kind of work through some of the issues they're having with some of their dreams, and it has super cool clear cards that have an overlay over them so that you can assign those thoughts to the patients that you have. So you're going to be working through and gaining what you need to do to help them. I love the way that the actions work. So I think Johnny Pack designed this. There's a large board and you have these little markers, and it's basically a little thought bubble. And so it has a speaking bubble or whatever, like you draw in a cartoon or something, comic. And so it has a point to it, and you're going to place it in an intersection pointing to whichever action you want to take on for that. And there's different levels of how much you can take the action. You've got a player board that you can upgrade things and take actions on. And then there's also a map board where you will be traveling around town, taking different actions, stopping at different points, gaining items and cards and things. And so I really like all of everything that's going on. There's a lot going on in this game. It is a heavy game, but the choices that you have to make in it are very good.
I've only played a partial game of this. I think back when the Kickstarter was still running. So I definitely do want to play a full game because I think it would hit some of the sweet spots that I love in games.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this one.
Number 3.
My number 3 is Courtisans from Pandasaurus Games. And as you can see, I ended up putting a lot of small box games on my list this year. I tend to get these to the table more than some of the bigger games. You probably feel the same way. And this one, I love that there's very simple rules. All you're going to do on your turn, you're going to get 3 cards off the deck, and you're going to put 1 in your tableau, put 1 in somebody else's tableau, and 1 in the center tableau. And where you put it in that tableau, you're going to place it in the matching color column, and you're either going to add it to be in favor with the queen to gain positive points for your tableau, and everybody else is going to gain points, or you're going to make it negative. And so at the end of the game, once all the cards in the deck have been played, you will see, did this color, or I believe it's the faction or family or whatever, are they in favor with the queen, meaning everybody's cards like that are positive points, or are they negative points? You also have some secret goals that you're trying to work towards. So you might have a goal that you want something to be negative, and you know that, so you're working towards that. So you want to, I'm going to give Melissa these red cards that are negative because I'm trying to make it negative. But no, Will made it positive right at the end. So there are a few cards in the deck that also have an ability when you play them. So you might be able to remove some cards from the game, or it might be worth double, or you might be able to give a card secretly to somebody face down so they don't even know what it is. So very simple rules and mechanics going on, but we've played it a number of times.
Yeah, I usually am a little leery of more of the interactive games and because you there's a little bit of take that in this one, but it's so quick and the art is whimsical. And everyone's doing it because you have to play cards in front of other people.
Cards to other
so
people.
It doesn't feel mean to me, I don't think.
Yeah, it doesn't. It is a take that type of game. And normally I'm not for those at all. But because you're required to give cards to other people every turn, and you can affect your own cards. So Melissa might have given me one of the red ones, and I might make it positive by the end of the game. Like, I ended up with all these red ones. I'm just going to make it positive. Put the right cards out in the middle. So you can change how those cards that you're given can affect your score at the end. So, yeah.
So my number 3 is also a small box game, and it is The Gang from Cosmos. Now, this is a cooperative poker game. So basically you're playing Texas Hold'em, and you are trying to, by the end of the round, so let's see if I can do this right. It's the flop, then the turn, then the river.
Yeah.
So after the river card is down, you're trying to rank everyone from the worst hand to the best hand.
But you don't know what anybody has.
Right. You're not allowed to tell people the cards that you have in your hand. And throughout each round, as new cards come out, you can take chips ranked from 1 to your player count, like 5 or 6, to indicate where you feel like you are in the rankings. But I've played this. It's probably one of my most played games this year. So some of our friends have enjoyed playing poker, and this has been an interesting variant of that with the cooperative nature.
This probably would be in my top 5. I didn't actually play it this year. I only watched everybody else get to play this. I watched people at Gen Con play a number of hands. I watched you guys play it at my house a number of times. I ended up running the cameras for the video when you guys. So don't worry, it will be hitting my table soon. Number 2.
So my number 2 game of the year is one that Sarah has already mentioned, River of Gold from Office Dog. And I really appreciated that. This one felt to me kind of like an old school Euro.
It does.
There isn't a lot of rules overhead and complexity. The user interface is pretty good with the player board walks you through your turn and what things mean. There's a player aid. And I thought that there were good choices without it being overwhelming. I like that there's variety. You can play with the special powers for the clan members, which give you a little benefit. Each clan has 2 to choose from, so you can kind of, steer the way that you are going to strategize for the game. And the choices weren't overwhelming because you basically roll a die and the number determines where you can build, or what person you can deliver to, or how many spaces your boat can move down the river. So you have basically those 3 options, and then your die number. Now there are ways to mitigate the die, so if I really need a 5, I can spend some divine favor to turn my 4 into a 5, so you're not completely locked out. But I did like that I felt that there was a good number of choices, but they weren't overwhelming, they were restricted, and then I had to figure out the best way to optimize what I had for that turn. And it plays pretty quickly, like an hour, hour and a half, but still feels like a meaty experience.
This one's a great game. My number 2 is Ezra and Nehemiah from Garphill Games. This one is one of those really big worker placement type games. There are 3 main sections of the board. So you'll have scribes who are working on gaining new information. So there's a tile section that you can gain benefits from building those tiles. There is a sacrifice portion that your priests will go, and so you can add more priests from your workers to go work in the temple. You'll get a benefit for doing that. And then you can also make sacrifices. You have to gain resources to go spend. You can only spend the sacrifices you can actually burn. So your wood, and you can't burn stone. So you have to work that out. And then there's also building the wall. So in this, the outside edge of the board has little slots and sections of the wall. So you'll have to remove the rubble pieces that are there. You get to gain those resources. And then you'll have to build things there. If you build adjacent to other things, you'll get bonuses. And if you build a gate, you'll be able to gain bonuses for people building the walls next to those. So it's got a little bit of benefiting other people or maybe yourself from building the wall. And then at the end of the week, and you'll play 3 weeks, you will have to make a sacrifice. And in that, you'll see where you are on the sacrifice track. And if you've done well, you'll gain a bonus. If you've done really well, you'll gain extra bonuses. And if you didn't send enough resources to that, then you'll gain a penalty. So there's some of other Shem's games that have been similar to that type of mechanic where you have to get in just the right amount to get the minimum benefits for it.
So I feel like this is a theme for this year, where I've played portions of the games, but I haven't.
That is true.
Because we get together like on Monday nights for a few hours, and the longer games, I might get to play half of it or 3/4. And this is another one where I think we played about 3/4 of a game and then had to abandon it. I did enjoy what I played of it and would love to sit down and play a full game. The life of a reviewer, always playing new stuff or, trying to, since I wasn't reviewing this one, I was playing other games to make sure that I could, talk about the games I review. But
we'll put it as his number 1, but...
Spoilers.
But he's beat me a couple times, so I think that's probably...
he probably has a bias. I guess we should mention that the guys did a video. You should probably watch theirs as well. Ours has more... I think we're taking it a little slower. There's only 2 of us instead of 4. And maybe talking through our thoughts a little bit more. Number 1.
My number 1 is River Valley Glassworks. And same as last year, I tried to look at the games that I played the most times, which does lean towards some of the smaller box games. But this one blew everything else out of the water. I had a prototype of the game. So I literally played the prototype more than any other game this year until I was able to pick up the full release at Gen Con. And I've played it with all kinds of people, heavy gamers, medium weight gamers, people who like lightweight family games, people who don't regularly play games, and across the board, everybody has said really good things about this one. I think this could be up for a spiel. So we'll see how that goes.
Throwing down the gauntlet.
We'll see. I would not be surprised at all if it gets a spiel nominee this year.
Yeah.
It's very approachable. Mm-hmm. It has simple rules that make sense, and it has really good components. The whole game works together really well.
All right.
My number 1.
Well, my number 1, can I get it up here, is one that Sarah had already mentioned. Did I get it face up? Good. Number 1, you want it pretty and face up. So, Blueprints of Mad King Ludwig by Bezier Games. My favorite game of all time is Castles of Mad King Ludwig. So it shouldn't be a surprise that a game based on that is high on my list. And I think this is a great re-implementation of the game. It feels different. It's
does feel
definitely not the
different.
same game, but it has a lot of the same elements of building and trying to get the right buildings, the right colors, the types that you're trying to put into your castle. I love that when you finish one of your rooms, you get a benefit, and a lot of those benefits you can hold on to and use them at the best time. So some games, combos you have to use right away, but in this one, I can move doors later, or I can dive into the discard pile, but I can do that when it's best for me. So I like that you can have those combos and then save them for the right time. I am terrible at drawing. I can't even draw a circle. I mean, I am super bad. I'm so glad that this has a grid and you can trace the rooms. So even someone like me who has no drawing artistic talent, I can still play this game because of the vellum, and you just trace the room, and
I'm the opposite. I've drawn all kinds of extra stuff.
So the people who want to embellish can, and then I can just do it simple and think about the points and the bonuses and my decree and all of those things. So
I love that it has the other page to mark off stuff and keep track of. It makes it much simpler than the original.
Yeah, and the whole scorekeeping, each thing has a slot on the board, so it's very easy to then tally your points at the end of the game. So Blueprints of Mad King Ludwig is my number one for the year. I love it and have played it many times. Now, I think we both have some honorable mentions.
We have honorable mentions.
Because who can ever just keep it to 10,
That's right.
Right?
I did my honorable mentions a little different this year.
Ooh.
So I had too many honorable mentions. We've gotten out of control with the honorable mentions. I do have to say that.
Normally, I'm the one with
it's you.
all of them, and people make fun of me. But I think Sarah is taking the cake this year.
Instead of showing you and talking about all of them, I'm just going to give you an entire another top 10 list.
What?
These are my top 10 honorable mentions. So if none of the games or some of the games didn't resonate with you of my top 10, check out one of these, because you may find your new favorite game in this. All right, I'm just going to read them. These are not in any order or anything. I'm just going to read my next 10 that I would have probably ranked some way. My next 11 through 20. Cascadia, the roll and write game, so Rolling Hills and the other one. Cities, Fractured Sky, Things in Rings, Maki Master, Dabbawala, Forges of Ravenshire, Stamp Swap, Maple Valley, and Parks Roll and Hike. So check those out if you're looking for more ideas of great games to get to the table this year.
Well, I brought mine, so I'll be back in just a second. Okay, so I only have 3-ish honorable mentions. The first one is Evenfall, and this is an honorable mention because I believe it came out in 2023, not 2024, but I played it for the first time this year. And it's a very interesting hand management card, like cards that you're putting in your tableau game. There's also workers that you're sending out to do things. And it was just interesting because when the cards are in one area of your player board, they're kind of like income that you can get. But they don't score you any points unless you're able to get them into the bottom area of your player board. And there's a specific action that lets you do that. So there's a timing aspect of how long do I leave them up top for the income that I'm getting, and when do I bring them down? And I have certain workers that can go on the bottom cards, but not other places. So it was a very interesting game with asymmetric player boards. You can play the normal game with just everyone on the same type of board, but then on the opposite side has player powers. So
I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this one.
Yeah, it came out in Europe. I think it was Essen, not this year, but the year before. And I don't know if it had a widespread US release or not, but Evenfall is one of my honorable mentions. Another is the Search for UAPs from Bezier Games. This is similar to the Search for Planet X, which is a deduction game, logic deduction. You're trying to figure out where the thing is. It uses an app, it's app assisted. And this one is more complex than Search for Planet X. And I really enjoyed it. Kevin and I have a review video on it, but I do love deduction
I'm not as good
games.
at deduction games as I thought I was whenever I play against Kevin and Melissa.
Well, we do enjoy them. Now you have to watch out for Kevin because he'll like guess.
And
throw stuff.
That throws you off.
And if you're like thinking Kevin knows what he's talking about and basing some of your predictions on him, that might not be a good idea. So my final honorable mention is another space-themed game, and this is SETI Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence from CGE. And this is, I would put it into the heavyweight Euro category. There is a lot going on in this game with rotating space boards for the universe. You are trying to find traces of alien life. You have cards that are multi-use. You're flying around probes around the solar system. Yeah, there's a lot going on. I enjoyed it. Kevin and I are going to have a review video out soon, but it was just a little too heavy for our current play groups of people that we play with a lot. So it's just not going to hit the table very often. It also has the aspect where, kind of like Lost Ruins of Arnak, people can take a different number of turns. So you could have someone waiting 5, 10, 15 minutes because they didn't use their resources wisely. And so they're sitting out for a while other people continue to play.
That's just snack time. You go get some snacks and come back.
Snack and come back. But I did enjoy SETI. I hope to play it some more, but I just have to find the right group and the right time. So I know I said this was my last honorable mention. But there were a ton of great small box games and card games that came out this year. Sarah mentioned quite a few in her list and then her extra list. But Kevin and I are putting out a top 10 card games and small box game to cover a lot of those that just didn't quite make it into our regular top 10, but we still think are great games that came out in 2024. Now, should we mention again, there was a contest, right?
So if you like this video, we will be selecting a winner if we can get 1,500 likes by the end of 2024. So you got just a couple weeks to like the video, and we'll be sending out a copy of Courtisans, which was on my list. So thank you so much for sticking around and watching our videos. If you have games that you would recommend that we didn't have on the list that we should check out, there's so many games that come out. We don't get to try them all. So if you have something that you love this year that you want to recommend to not only us, but everybody else in the chat, do so. Thank you so much for liking this video.
Yep, and let us know. Whose list did you like the best? Ooh. Mine, Sarah's, or if you watch the guys, any of their lists really resonate with you, let us know in the comments.
Yep. We'll see you next time.